So today, day 4, the last main concept of this chapter. Because after day 4 is one more last class. It's called bed mass. So today, we're going to start on adding and subtracting. So we've looked at fractions or rationals on a number line. We looked at multiplying them. We looked at dividing them. Today is the last day of the new stuff, which you've done before, adding and subtracting. Then after that, just putting it all together with bed mass. So I think today, I'm not going to take you guys all right to the end of the period. I'll give you a bit of a break. So I'm going to kind of jump around. I'll do a little bit of the first page, and I'll do a little bit of the back page, and we'll finish it off next class. All right. So now, most students find adding and subtracting the most difficult part of this unit, right? And it really comes down to start mixing up some of the rules from the earlier part of the chapter and not being strong with your multiplication table. Because if you want to add or subtract fractions, the denominators need to be the same before you can progress, right? So we call that finding the lowest common denominator, or LCD, okay? So that needs to be the same, right? We need to make sure they're out of the same amount of parts before we can add them, right? We like to make the denominator the smallest as possible, but any common denominator will work, and we sort of talked about that in the past, okay? Now, when we unfortunately, numbers get a lot more uglier looking in grade 9. You'll see a lot more negative signs all over the place. All right? And just like with the multiplication rules, we want to find pairs, positive pairs. All right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we do this question here. Right? Okay, so let's start off with this. So before we can combine these two things, we need to make sure the denominators are the same. So you look at the two bottom numbers and you say, okay, what number can both of these fit into? And this is where if you're not strong with your multiplication, you can use the multiplication chart, right? So our two denominators are 4 and 2. These are the multiples of 4 and 2, right? We're looking for a common denominator, a common multiple between these two. Yes? 4. 4. So the lowest common multiple is the one that shows up first in both rows. So 4 works. Now, 8 would as well, 12 would as well, and so would 16, right? You can use all those numbers. But if you use those numbers, it just means you're going to have to do extra simplifying at the end. So we try to use the smallest one, right? So our simplifying and our numbers stay smaller. So looking at these, the first number doesn't need to change, right? And because it's already a 4, the second one needs to change. So to change a 2 to a 4, you need to multiply the bottom by 2. And here's the thing, and this is one of the mistakes that students do over and over and over again, is they'll change the bottom number, but they'll forget to change the top, right? So when we're multiplying fractions, we need to multiply top and bottom so it stays equivalent. We use that word so many times in the past, right? We're changing the way this looks. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, but it still has the same value. That's the key thing, right? 2 over 4, it looks different than 1/2, but it has the same value. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, 2 divided by 4 is still 0.5. We manipulated it so we can do some math, right? So now once your denominators are the same, right? The bottom number stays the same, denominator, and we combine the tops, right? So this here is -3 plus 2. Well, it is -1, right? And you can use your calculator for that as well. And if you're struggling, this is why I do all that adding and subtracting practice. Is usually with the negative numbers where students start making mistakes. And remember, on your calculator, you'll have a negative button, but you'll also have a subtraction button. So if you want to do -3, you have to use the negative button, not the subtract. For me, my negative button is right here. For some of you guys, it'll be like a +/- sign or a negative sign in brackets. So -3 + 2, -1. All right. Okay.
Does it matter where the minus is on the answer?
No, it could be up front. It could look like this, or it could be like this. There are this. Oops, that's not quite.
Okay, so it's always put at the top.
Usually easier. You as soon as make less mistakes if it's on the top. You can put it out front if you want as well. And technically you can go with the denominator, but that's okay. All right. So now over here, this question here has got a whole lot of negatives on it. And when we pair up, all right, negatives and cancel things out, they need to be on the same fraction. So it's a little bit different when we're multiplying. Because when we're multiplying and dividing, we can cancel a negative in the first fraction with a negative in the second fraction, right? Because they're combined. But when they're adding and subtracting, you can only cancel negatives on the same fraction. So if a fraction has multiple negatives, find the positive pairs. Right? Always move the negative, if a number is negative, to the top, the numerator. Right? And finally, if you have mixed fractions, turn them into improper. Okay. So on this one, right, we can't take this negative from over here and cancel a negative over here. You can only cancel negatives on the same fraction. So we can do these two to cancel each other out. And that's it. There's no other negative canceling. You can't use this one from over here to cancel that one over there. It has to be on the same one. So I'm going to rewrite this so it looks a little bit nicer. This is what it looks like. Okay. So now going forward here, we can't combine these together because it's out of different parts. So we need to make them out of the same part. So our denominators are 4 and 5. What's the common denominator? Damien? 20, right? So to turn the first number into 20, we have to multiply the top and bottom by 5, and the other one, top and bottom by 4. Okay, and if you're not sure where that came from, you can use your multiplication chart. Here's 4, here's 5, the common multiple, 20. 40 would also work, right? Going back. Convert those, right? So this becomes negative 15 over 20. This one becomes minus 4 over 20. Okay. What's the bottom number for a combined fraction? Going to be Damien?
400.
No.
20.
20. It doesn't change. When you're adding and subtracting, you're saying, hey, how many slices of 20 do we have? Well, we have negative 15 slices of 20 here, negative 4 slices of 20. How many do we have all together? So now, the top. Some of you guys may find it helpful to just write the tops off to the side and look at it. Like, this is optional. Like, this on the top is minus 15, negative 15, minus 4. Just reading across like this. All right? That's the math we need to do. Some of you guys can look at this and see that. Other guys will struggle to see the connection between the two. If you're struggling to see the connection, just write it off. Just hide the bottom and go, this is what I have. So negative 15 minus 4, what number do we get?
Negative 19.
Negative 19. Right? And once we have our final answer, we look to simplify if we can. Right? In this case, we can't. So the first few I set up that you can't simplify. Right? And we can't simplify any steps beforehand. All right. Let's do, should we do this one? Yeah, let's do this one here. So if you're given a mixed fraction, we first turn it into an improper fraction. The method, multiply, then add. The denominator stays the same. What should the numerator here be? Yeah, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. But we also have that negative sign. And I'm going to just move it up to the front here. Right? Then over here, this is a 10. What should the numerator for this one be? Thank you, 19. 10 times 1 is 10, plus 9, 19. Okay. So now we need a common denominator.
30.
Thank you, 30. And if you're struggling, you can use your table, 3 and 10, you look across, 30 is what you have in common. So the first one, we have to multiply top and bottom by 10. Second one, we have to multiply top and bottom by 3. So we get negative 80 over 30 plus 30 over 57. Okay? So the bottom stays the same, and we combine the top. And we have negative 80, ignore the bottoms, plus 57. What do we get? Negative 80 plus 57. You can use your calculator here. Negative what?
23.
Negative 23. Thank you. All right. Okay. All right. And I think I'll stop there. I think I was going to do more, but I think I'll just stop there.